everyone, it's Katrina. The mushroom religion. There has been archaeological evidence collected from around the world that ancient cultures had some kind of belief system based on mushrooms, what you might call a mushroom religion. Evidence comes from Mesoamerica, including multiple South American cultures and even the people of Easter Island. Evidence also comes from all the way on the other side of the world in China, and beyond that to the Hindu cultures of India. But there is still a bit of a debate among scholars as to the true identity of the mysterious mushroom plant seen in statues, reliefs, and painted images throughout the Old World. According to the Rig Veda, an ancient Indian collection of Sanskrit hymns, there is a plant called soma, described as being red with no leaves, no roots, and no blossoms. In other words, a mushroom. This bizarre soma plant was described as being an ingredient in an intoxicating drink that could give you immortality. This plant was likely used in rituals in India as far back as the 1st millennium BC. But how did the soma plant spread to China and across the water to South America? What were all these different cultures doing making drinks and worshipping a mushroom? The truth is that nobody really knows. Scholars guess that the soma mushroom was worshipped as a god because of its psychic powers. Nobody knows exactly what plant was used in these ancient rituals, but it likely had some psychedelic properties, making whoever drank tea brewed from the mushroom hallucinate. This probably played a major role in spiritual and religious ceremonies. In the end, the biggest coincidence here is that from China to Easter Island, humans have found a way to worship what we think of today as magic mushrooms. Mayan Pompeii. Pretty much everyone is familiar with the legendary Pompeii, the city that was buried in ash when Mount Vesuvius erupted in Italy. But did you know that almost the exact same thing happened in El Salvador? Human remains have just been discovered for the first time in El Salvador's Folla de Serén, a city which was also buried by an almost identical volcanic eruption that happened about 1,400 years ago. The archaeological site is often referred to as the Mayan Pompeii because of its startling similarities. El Salvador's Ministry of Culture reports that the cataclysmic eruption of the nearby Loma Caldera volcano ruined a ton of Mayan sites in the area that helped to preserve the entire city of Folla de Serén, preserving everything in almost perfect condition, frozen in time, just like Pompeii. Here, the volcanic eruption happened in 535 AD, hundreds of years after the incident at Pompeii, which was in 79 AD. It's believed that this volcanic eruption, or several at the same time in Central America and Iceland, changed the world forever, plunging it into darkness with its effects felt all over the world. The atmosphere was filled with ash, blocking the sun and making everything cold. Crops died, disease spread, wars began, and 536 became the worst year to be alive. Like Pompeii and Herculaneum in Italy, the remains of Folla de Serén were discovered in exceptional condition. Unfortunately, not as much research has been done in El Salvador compared to Italy, and it was the first time that human remains have been found in the city covered in ash. This person died before the eruption and was buried with an obsidian knife. Excavations are slowly ongoing as researchers wait for funding to uncover what life was like in the Maya city in 535. The three geniuses. It's always a great big coincidence whenever you meet a person who shares the same birthday as you. But what about three geniuses entwined in a life and death cycle on the exact same dates? It began on January 8, 1642, when Galileo Galilei died. Galileo was a brilliant Italian astronomer who discovered 4 of the largest moons of Jupiter, craters and mountains on the moon, and he was fairly certain that the Earth was not actually the center of the universe, which got him in major hot water with the church. Exactly 300 years after Galileo died, Stephen Hawking was born. That would be January 8, 1942. Stephen Hawking contributed a significant amount of scientific knowledge to our world as well, even changing the way we understand how the universe works and how gravity and black holes function. Stephen Hawking died on March 14, 2018. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, making this birth coincide with the date of death of Stephen Hawking. The birth and death of Stephen Hawking coinciding with Albert Einstein and Galileo makes this an absolutely outrageous coincidence that's almost enough to make a person believe in reincarnation. Even more bizarre is that both Hawking and Einstein lived to be 76 years old. Whether there is some cosmic connection between these three men, or it's just the greatest birthday/death coincidence ever, we will never know. The origin of money. Here's an interesting coincidence. People from the ancient world figured out how to use currency all by themselves back in the early Bronze Age. Somehow, over 5,000 years ago, all the ancient cultures living in Europe and in the nearby Mediterranean area devised an equal system of weighing currency for trade. Researchers got together and examined over 5,000 objects from over 100 ancient treasure hoards scattered throughout Europe. What they found was many bits and pieces of bronze from all kinds of objects, from jewelry to weapons, that all weighed the same thing. The team also looked at weighing systems that were used from Western Europe all the way to the Indus Valley, from between 3000 to 1000 BC. What they found was that the system for weighing currency became standard across the ancient world. But how? How did bronze scraps have the same value over such a large area when people could barely communicate with each other 5,000 years ago? Apparently, entrepreneurship and travel was going strong. The reason this is such a shocking coincidence is that back in those days, it's hard to believe that people living in the west of France could take a scrap of metal all the way to Greece or to Turkey and sell it for the same price. That kind of thing doesn't even happen today, as currency and value are wildly different when you cross an international border. So how it happened, how all these cultures agreed on one currency and one system of measurement, is a complete mystery. The Inca-Egypt Enigma. One of the greatest historical coincidences ever has to do with the Inca Empire and the ancient Egyptians. Even though there are thousands of miles between the two civilizations, they share a whole heap of similarities. Both cultures built pyramids aligned with the cardinal points of the universe. They both dressed their dead loved ones in brilliant pieces of jewelry, and they both used animals to symbolize all kinds of things in their societies, from power to death. And let's not forget mummies. Both the Egyptians and the Inca practiced mummification with a startling amount of obsession. They may have mummified their dead differently, but the very fact that both cultures came up with the idea to preserve dead bodies so that their souls could travel safely into the afterlife is a wild coincidence. It's true that the Inca practiced human sacrifice, and the Egyptians weren't quite so keen on that, but there are many similarities between these ancient people, including their main deity. In Egypt, the main god was named Ra, who symbolized the sun. In Peru, the Inca worshipped a deity called Inti, who also happened to be a personification of the sun. In fact, worshipping gods who were representations of the sun is a key factor of many ancient religions. Some people even say Jesus Christ is also a representation of the sun, with his death and resurrection being a clever way to describe the winter solstice. Of course, you can take similarities and coincidences quite far if you want to, so it is up for you to decide. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments below. Hercules. One of the most famous heroes in history may very well have been a real person. I'm talking about the Greek hero Heracles, also known as Hercules to the Romans and to the rest of the world today. But according to some historians, the legends of Hercules may have originated from one or more real people in the very distant past. In fact, most ancient legends start with real historical events and real historical people, but as these stories are repeated over time, they become far more dramatic. In the case of Hercules, it's believed his story may actually be the oldest in all of the world's mythology, with its root in the prehistoric Stone Age. But here's the deal. Hercules may not have actually lived in Greece. The legend of Hercules is strikingly similar to other heroes spoken of in Mesopotamia and other parts of the Near East. Experts think the old Stone Age heroes may have been exaggerated by the Mesopotamians, then handed down to the Greeks thousands of years later. It's why Hercules is always seen wearing animal skin and carrying around a club. He's literally a caveman. When the Romans came along, they took Hercules and made him their own, and through the last 2,000 years, the hero has continued to evolve. There is no real coincidence here, just the amazing truth of how one Stone Age person's incredible life became a legend, a myth, and a popular icon over 5,000 years after he lived. I'm sure whoever he was, he would be shocked to learn that his story had so much impact it even was made into a Disney movie. Hitler and Napoleon. Adolf Hitler and Napoleon Bonaparte have some of the most surprising things in common. Yes, both were technically warmongering rulers of a European nation desperate to control the world, but their similarities go beyond that. Internet sleuths have pointed out it all comes down to the number 129. Napoleon was born in the year 1760, and Hitler was born in the year 1889. That's a difference of approximately 129 years. When Napoleon came into power, it was 1804. When Hitler came into power, it was 1933. Yet again, a difference of approximately 129 years. And the similarities just keep coming. Napoleon invaded Vienna in 1812. Hitler did it in 1941. Yet again, 129 years. When Napoleon was finally defeated for good, it was 1816. When Hitler lost the war for Germany, it was 1945. The difference is, you guessed it, 129 years. Of course, this doesn't prove anything tangible. It could just be an outrageous coincidence. Then again, it could be something spiritualists call synchronicity, when certain events sync up with one another for reasons beyond our own understanding. Napoleon and Hitler each came to power at the age of 44. Both attacked Russia 6 years later when they were 52. Both failed to take over Russia, and when they both lost the war, they were both 56 years old. Pyramids. The Egyptians, the Mayas, the Mesopotamians, the Nubians, the Aztecs, everyone built pyramids. Pyramids can be found all over the globe, and the amazing thing is that they basically all look identical. According to Smithsonian Magazine, there are over 100 pyramids in Egypt alone. And even though the Egyptian pyramids are the most well-known, they are hardly the most impressive. The pyramids at Teotihuacan in Mexico are just as impressive, with the largest being the Pyramid of the Sun, with a square base about 730 feet wide. Every ancient culture of the earth built pyramids of varying size and shape. For example, there are hundreds of pyramids in central Sudan, what was once the Kingdom of Nubia. However, the pyramids here are smaller than their Egyptian neighbors and narrower. An Italian explorer even broke one of the Nubian pyramids open, hoping to find some treasure inside. He didn't, and the pyramid still stands broken today. Of course, many people would have you believe that the pyramids were used as beacons for contacting extraterrestrials. Either that, or they were at least built with the help of extraterrestrials. But the truth is, that's probably not what happened. Almost all of the pyramids were likely built as a universal symbol of reaching to the heavens and as special burial places. The Chinese mummies. Even though ancient China and ancient Egypt never made contact with each other, that we know of, both civilizations decided to create mummies, albeit a little differently. Historians still don't understand why mummification was such a thrilling idea, or why it came about at roughly the same time in two completely different cultures. The Egyptians mummified important people inside sarcophagi, wrapping them in bandages to preserve their bodies for eternity. The Chinese did something similar, enveloping their royal dead in robes of jade plates. One such mummy is currently housed at the Suzhou Museum, a mummy stuck inside a green robe made from over 2,000 tiny jade plates, creating a suit of armor that the Chinese believed would protect the soul of the deceased in the afterlife. The Egyptians had a similar belief, thinking that by painting certain winged deities on the outside of sarcophagi and keeping the bodies in a state of mummification, the souls of the dead would have safe passage into the underworld and the realm beyond. What's not known is why the two cultures that never met came up with the same ideas and similar ways to execute them. Is it a coincidence? Or did they learn the process of mummification from a third, unknown party? Missing noses. Anyone who's ever taken a trip to Egypt has probably wondered what the deal is with all the statues missing their noses. Is it a coincidence that so many great monuments lost their nose? It is and it isn't. If you take a good hard look at the Sphinx, you'll notice it too has its nose broken off. Statues at the Brooklyn Museum have missing noses, and in just about every Egyptian temple that still stands, there are statues with no noses. So what's the deal? The ancient Egyptians had a firm belief that when they built a sculpture to personify someone, that someone's soul could occupy the sculpture. When there was trouble in Egyptian society, usually having to do with a specific ruler, this ruler would sometimes break the noses off the statues of his rival or his rival's ancestors as a way to show strength. The destruction of the nose was almost always politically or religiously motivated. The nose in particular was smashed because the Egyptians believed it would cause the spirit residing in the statue to stop breathing. Later on, grave robbers did the same thing with the statues of the tombs or temples they were pillaging. They believed that by smashing the nose and stopping the statue from breathing, it wouldn't have the power to smite them down for stealing their stuff. Thanks for watching! What do you think is the craziest historical coincidence? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button and come back soon for another awesome video. See you later! Bye!